First and foremost, I am honored by the faith that this organization has placed in me to help state employees and retirees navigate these challenging and unpredictable times. At this time last year, TPEA was in the process of conducting a search for its next executive director. For more than 2 decades, Gary Anderson filled that role with distinction. He led TPEA through the booms and busts of the Texas economy and the ups and downs of the state budget. He diversified TPEA's assets and kept the association moving forward in the face of significant political challenges. For all of that, we owe Gary a great debt. When I became your executive director, I had a completely different idea of what I would be addressing here. As with any organization that has changed leadership after a long tenure, it is time for a new approach to TPEA's primary functions, which I consider to be the following: serving as the eyes, ears, and voice of state employees and retirees in the legislature, providing up-to-the-minute information and communications with active state employees and retirees, innovating new services and ways to support state employees in advancing their careers, providing opportunities in which employees, particularly those in the early stages of their careers, can connect and network with each other socially and professionally, engaging our members for enhanced transparency, feedback, and suggestions, reaching out to state agency heads, reestablishing strong working relationships, improving the public image of state employment and state employees, and raising TPEA's positive profile with state officials to rekindle the association's historic role as the face of state employees and retirees in the legislature. We are talking about all these things here today, but in a far different context than the one that existed right before the world as we know it collapsed on itself. Instead of a state economy humming along, creating record numbers of new jobs, unemployment has reached levels not seen since the 1930s. Instead of state tax revenue flowing into the Treasury, giving us the prospect of healthy end-of-the-year balances, state agencies are being asked to cut their budgets by at least 5%. Instead of strong revenue forecasts for the next budget based on escalating sales tax growth and dynamic expansion of the oil and gas industry, the more likely scenario is that it includes across-the-board budget cuts of unknown dimensions next session. To state the obvious, conditions are not ideal. The next legislature won't be in any mood to spend money on anything. Despite that, I see great opportunity, not inevitable defeat. The coronavirus pandemic has demonstrated the crucial importance of maintaining public services under the worst of conditions. This is no localized emergency. This affects each and every one of us, and each one of us, whether we are conscious of it or not, relies on state employees doing their jobs, come what may. We are certainly seeing this most prominently in frontline jobs, such as correctional and public safety officers, caseworkers, assisted living center employees, but it's not only those on the front line who are putting themselves at risk each day for the good of the whole. Pandemic or no pandemic, individuals and businesses still need their license and certifications renewed, their permit applications processed, their roads and highways maintained, their air and water protected, their food supply inspected, and all the other services that only state employees can provide. If this emergency has demonstrated anything, it is that we must have a strong and stable workforce, because in time of crisis, that may be all we have to hold things together. TPEA has a long and rich history of rising to the occasions in both good times and bad. Unfortunately, we have often been the victims of our own success, because we have convinced state leaders that they needed to do a better job of securing the future of the people who work for them. Our most impressive successes, passing a constitutional amendment for state employee retirement and securing state-paid health care coverage, for example, have paradoxically resulted in the steady decline of membership over the years. Why join an organization that has already won the benefits that state employees always deserved? It is far more difficult to convince people to support an organization when the mission is to protect and enhance a benefit than it is to get the benefit in the first place. We need to turn this trend around, and we can. How? By reinventing TPEA, by innovating new strategies that go beyond our traditional prospects and expand our base and our diversity. By telling the stories of state employees who have put themselves on the line in times of crisis conditions. By recapturing TPEA's foundational purpose to represent and serve the interests of active state employees and those who have retired from state service. This reinvention must equally focus on our retired members who have long been a bulwark for TPEA during crises like our current one. Many of you are painfully aware of the lack of annuity increases for state retirees. Only a robust health care plan has protected pocketbooks from the erosion of inflation, but we cannot ever take it for granted that this situation will continue. We must all be diligent in trying to keep retiree health care benefits intact. It must likewise be our mission to preserve the pension fund too, while we await better economic times that would allow additional infusion of state funds into ERS. We must continually remind the legislature and state leadership that funding ERS sufficient to maintain the actuarial soundness of the pension fund is not simply good policy, but constitutionally mandated. Until the legislature comes through with a plan to put ERS on a clear path to solvency, we will work to enhance employee benefits and retiree benefits whenever possible. Another part of this reinvention, we must consider rebranding ourselves to more closely reflect our mission. This may involve changing our name, for example, to Texas Association of State and Retired Employees, or something similar. Such a change would clearly convey what we actually are and whom we actually serve. We must continue our outreach to other associations and organizations that represent public employees, retirees, business, and industry. Without state employees maintaining the infrastructure, providing public safety, keeping the lights on, serving the most vulnerable population, and making it possible for businesses to operate safely, the Texas economy could not be sustained. And assuming that this economy comes roaring back after the current crisis subsides, we're going to need a more experienced, better paid state workforce to make sure we can manage our growth in the most efficient way possible. One of the most productive uses of state resources is to invest in the people that put state into the state of Texas. In short, we must make ourselves a force to be reckoned with. This is what TPEA used to be. If I have anything to do with it, this is what we will be again.